Now, FIFA President Gianni Infantino has urged world leaders to call a ceasefire to conflict during the World Cup.
Rob Dorset live for us now in Doha. Rob, the FIFA president, he's not in Doha but in Bali for the G20 summit. His comments are making headlines. Can you tell us a bit more about them?
Yeah, Bella, you're absolutely right, and you'd expect them to, wouldn't you? The fact that Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, has decided to go to Bali to address world leaders in their summit, rather than be here in Doha for the few days of build-up before the World Cup tournament itself. He will be here shortly, of course. I think it's very significant. And look, Infantino knows the power of FIFA, and he believes that they can influence world politics. And he thinks that the World Cup represents a unique opportunity for the world to unite behind football and put their differences aside. And that's the message that you're going to hear from FIFA throughout this tournament, whether it comes to the issues of the LGBTQ plus community out here in Qatar and the discrimination they face, migrant workers, or whether it comes to world conflict. And of course, we know that the Ukraine war with Russia is pretty much top of the agenda at the G20 summit. So when Infantino calls for a ceasefire and human corridors to be introduced, even though he's not talking specifically about the Ukraine crisis, he's talking more generally about world peace, if you like. I think that is significant. Have a listen to exactly what he said. We'll hear from the FIFA president put it in his own words. And as I say, this isn't specifically about the Ukraine crisis, but it is very much in his thoughts when he talks about Russia as previous hosts of the World Cup and Ukraine as hosts, future hosts of the World Cup, as they're aspiring to be. A message to those two nations, I think, as well as a wider one. Here's what he had to say.
Football is a force for good. Of course, we are not naive to believe that football can solve the world's problems. For this, you are there. We know that our main focus as a sports organization is and should be sports. But because football unites the world, this particular World Cup, with 5 billion people watching it, can be the trigger for a positive gesture, for a sign or a message of hope. Dear leaders, Russia hosted the last World Cup in 2018. Ukraine is bidding to host the World Cup in 2030. Maybe that the current World Cup starting in 5 days can really be that positive trigger. So my plea to all of you is to think on a temporary ceasefire for 1 month for the duration of the World Cup, or at least the implementation of some humanitarian corridors or anything that could lead to the resumption of dialogue as a first step to peace. You are the world leaders. You have the ability to influence the course of history. Football and the World Cup are offering you and the world a unique platform of unity and peace all over the world. So let's take this opportunity to do everything we can to start putting an end to all conflicts.
So that's Gianni Infantino, the FIFA president, talking in Bali. We've had that footage come through in the last few minutes, and I think it's significant that the FIFA know it would be naive of them to call for world peace. That's not what they're calling for here, and they're not specifically calling for a ceasefire in Ukraine either. It's somewhere in between, more trying to use the power of football, as Infantino and FIFA see it, to try and right some of the ills in the world. So Infantino is in Bali. He's heading to Doha shortly, as indeed are England and Wales. It's travel day for both of them today. England will be here a little bit before Wales. They are on their way shortly to the airport, and they're expected to arrive after a 7-hour flight to Doha at their team base later on this evening, early evening. Wales will probably be here around midnight, maybe the early hours, because they're holding an open training session at the Cardiff City Stadium, where they've invited some primary schools to come along and view that today. But let's go back to England as well. There was a special guest and a special surprise for the players as they stepped onto the coach to head to the airport this morning, and that was Prince William, of course, who is president of the FA, and he presented each of the players with their World Cup squad shirt. We know they were given their squad numbers last night, and Prince William gave the shirts to those players before they stepped on the coach. We can show you those pictures, I think, that we've received from the FA in the last few minutes or so. But that is a significant gesture, isn't it? And I think will buoy the England players an awful lot. A visit from royalty, the heir to the throne, before they head out for a challenge at the World Cup. And bear in mind, for 14 of the 26 England players, they've never been to a World Cup before. So you suspect today is the day when this will hit home. Both England and Wales travelling out here later. More build-up as the tournament progresses, as the tournament prepares, shall we say, on Sky Sports News, and we will see England and Wales both in Doha later on at some stage today.
Thanks, Rob.